Hello, my name is Pittsburgh Pat, and I'm here with Marco Fossati. Marco, I met you on Facebook just a little while ago, and I saw that you have a Dungeons and Dragons channel, and I wanted to talk to you about that today. How are you today? Buonasera.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Pat. Thank you for your invitation. Okay. I'm
You're
here,
welcome.
ready to all of your questions.
Oh, very good. So you have a wonderful Facebook presence under the name of, it's about Dungeons and Dragons. What's the name of your
Okay, the label
presence?
is a Sign of the Dragon.
Sign of the Dragon.
Sign of the Dragon was founded in September 2019. Okay, I'm one of the two founders. The other founder is Marco Bertini, who is a friend of mine that lives not so near to me in Italy. Okay, I live in North Italy, north 20 kilometers north of Milan, the biggest city in north of Italy. Okay, while he lived in Tuscany, in the center of Italy. Okay, near Florence in Viareggio, on the Tyrrhenian Sea. Actually, even he's a friend of mine. We've met each other only 2 times for not more than 2-3 hours. Okay, we met first time we met in 2022 after 3 years we've worked together. Okay, I met Marco Bertini in February 2019. Okay, on the most important Italian Facebook page about Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, Marco has had at the time had already published a volume on the dmsguild.com. Okay, it's a quite successful adventure. Its name is The Second Black Dawn. Okay, in Italian, La Seconda Alba Nera. At that time, he had written it only in Italian, and he was looking for someone who did a translation. Okay, I don't know why. But I apply myself for that work. Okay, I really don't know why. Oh, more specifically, at that time I wanted to enter in the third-party RPG business. Okay, but I haven't enough information. I didn't know where to go, what to do. So I said to Marco Bertini, okay, I will translate for you for free. Okay, in English, there are more or less 50 pages. Okay, 50 pages on a Word document. I will translate it for free. Okay,
that's a heck of an endeavor, I have to say. I've just been editing novels in my native language, and people charge a lot of money for that, and it's time consuming. I can't even imagine taking on a translation project like that.
I did it for free because I wanted to know more about that word. Okay, and so when Marco sent me a copy of his work, it was awesome. Okay, the adventure is a good adventure. Okay, but it was awesome on layout, on graphics, on images. It seems to me it looked like an official product. Okay, so I had already a lot of pages written. Okay, in Word about Dungeons and Dragons and other RPGs, but what stopped me to publish them was because I haven't skill in layout, in graphics, in editing and publishing. So I asked Marco, Marco, what do you think? I write directly in English because American or English language market is much more bigger than Italian market in RPGs. They are incomparable. Italian market is smaller than American or English language market.
Sure.
Very, very small. So I write directly in English, and you will take care of all other stuff. What do you think? We share expenses, we share revenues. What do you think? We create a label, sign of the dragon. Okay, what do you think? He accepted. We started on 7th September 2019 with our first product, Vault of Magic. It was a simple collection of more or less 80 magic items and 20, 30 spells, okay? And it did very good.
Good.
In a few days, we hit more than 500 units sold.
Wow. That's on DM Guild. That's great.
Yeah, for DM's Guild, just a number. Okay.
Yeah.
On DM's Guild, they are actually more or less 35,000 of volumes. Only 4% of them, so more or less 1,500 have only 4% of them have at least 1,000 units sold.
Right.
Okay. We have 18 volumes. 14 of them have at least 1,000 units sold.
Fantastic. That's amazing.
So we found a framework and a framework that currently is successful on the DM's Guild. Okay, and so we continue. In my opinion, our business model must change, somewhat change. We are expecting the new edition of DnD.
Yes. DnD 1.
Probably one DnD will occur on May or June 2024. So in the next 4 or 5 months, we will change something. We'll surely update our 18 volumes to the new rules. Okay. Probably we'll focus also on some small adventures that we haven't explored that field for the moment. Okay.
Gotcha.
So we'll probably go in that direction. But of course, we had to change something. After 4 years, every business model after 4 or 5 years must be changed.
Yes.
In order must be renewed. In order to keep continuing. Okay. In order to keep continuing be successful, we must change something.
Well, so now you have so much more experience. You can look at your business model with that experience specific to this particular way of publishing. And I wanted to say, like the DM's Guild, I've been very intrigued. I've writing background and written a novel and short stories, and I've been considering publishing something on DM's Guild. It's excellent. I think that the viewers of this particular podcast would love to know more about that process, because I think a lot of them are players who might want to do this someday. Is it something you would encourage for everyone, or is it a big obstacle, do you think?
Okay. I will give you a couple of advices, counsels for your public.
Sure.
First thing, you're not good at everything. There's something you are good at, but there's also something you are not good at. So find someone to share the burden. Find someone to share the activities. Find someone who will take care of the things you are not able, or the things you don't like, and focus only on the things you are good at.
I
only
like that advice.
on the things you like. When we started with Marco, we never met. We met on Facebook. We chat only by messages using Messenger or WhatsApp. WhatsApp in Italy, it's much more
WhatsApp is wonderful for international
Okay.
communications as well.
I know in America, in USA, FaceTime or Snapchat are more used. In Italy, WhatsApp is the most used application. We only chat through messages. We never make a phone call. Okay. And the first two products published in 2019 were made and were successful, even if we haven't met each other, even if we hadn't talked by phone. Okay.
That's amazing.
Just because everyone had clearly what to do, and everyone was focused in doing that. We started to talk after the second volume, okay? And now we usually listen a couple of times a week, okay? But again, we met for the first time, we have met in 2022 at the most important RPG fair in Italy, which is held in Modena, a town between more or less at the same distance between my home place and his home place, okay? And we met each, but just for a couple of hours, because the other important things is that the DM skill can be a starter set for future works, for more important works. For example, after the first volumes, some Italian and international publishers contacted us for works. Personally, I have at this moment around 30 publications, 30 volumes published by Italian and other publishers. And also Marco, my partner, had some contracts with other publishers, and we were at that fair working for two different publishers. So we had only just a couple of hours to meet each other, to shake hands, to give a hug, give a high five, and then went back to work. So we did the same this year in 2023, always at the same fair. And so we never met each other, but model is a sexual. So it isn't important. It is important to clearly have in mind what to do.
Yes.
And what must be done and who must do it.
I think that's one of the reasons I like written communication is, but being a writer, but that way there's a clear line of the conversation.
Yes.
So it's not just what I recall and what was actually said, because I can distort that. But when it's actually written down, it's pretty clear. And then in getting those kinds of ideas, I think the other thing about the process of writing is that it makes the amorphous ideas in my head, the cloudy ideas, more solid. And so in order to communicate with another human being in writing, I must be precise. And
I agree
language.
with you. I agree with you, Pat. And I add one more thing. In my real life, I've been a consultant for the most important insurance companies and banks in Italy. Okay. Italian banks and Italian insurance companies are stern, strict, severe. Okay. Sure. This kind of approach that I must naturally have when dealing with the subjects is the same I use in my RPG works. I think it's one of the most important edges in confront of other designers.
You have a very serious attitude towards it, as opposed, the material may be used in a frivolous or a game-like fashion, a very pleasant fashion, but you actually have a very business-like approach to your creation
this
process.
Is very important. Even some of the CEOs which I work, CEOs of RPG Italian publishers, okay, said, okay, you under this aspect, you are very different from the others. Okay. I don't mean
in a good way.
I'm not meaning that the others are not serious. Okay.
Right.
All others are serious. Others probably have just another kind of approach to the work.
Well, that's what I'm interested in. I like to see how people approach it. So do you commit a certain number of hours a day to this, or per week? Is it structured in your schedule, or are you more of a person that's like, okay, I'm inspired to write about this now, so I will spend the next 7 hours writing this, you know?
Okay. No, I cannot commit a lot of hours per day.
Right.
Okay. I can't. My other work is very full. It's very gives me a very busy life.
Understood.
Usually, I create in 2 moments: on weekends, usually on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Okay, or when traveling. On train. By train, sorry. When I travel by train, I currently work 3 days a week in office, and the other days at home. Okay. When I go to office, I take the train. It usually takes 45 or 50 minutes to reach my office. During this time, during this period, I wrote with this. I wrote very fast. I wrote directly in English. Okay. And usually in one go, in one way, and the return, I wrote 3-4 pages of Word.
That's wonderful. I think that's amazing, because I think, see, in America, there aren't a lot of people who commute by train. In the larger cities, maybe New York City, that sort of thing, but most people drive. And one of the disadvantages to that is that what happens is, as a result of that, is that people consume media. So they listen to, like this, they'll listen to a podcast, or that's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. But if one is a creator, such as you are, you can utilize that time in a constructive way. And I think it's important for people to realize that if it's important to you, you will make the time. You will find the time, right?
I give you an example. In 2024, we start a new project under a new label. I cannot say anymore for the moment.
Sure, okay. Absolutely. It's, trade secrets.
Undisclosed. Okay. But our business model will be focused on very, very short modules. They will be put not on DM skill, but on drive-through. Okay. Because they will be agnostic system. Okay. So they can be used with every fantasy game system.
Gotcha.
Dungeons and Dragons to Warhammer to an OSR, everything.
Excellent.
Okay. I have already written 35 of this volume in less than 2 months, only by traveling on train.
Wow, that's fantastic. You are prolific. But you're focused too. Like, you know what you want to do, and now you have a kind of a system, and that's yours, and you've invented, and now you can do that. That's you've streamlined the process for yourself.
The other two guys that are in this project started to say to me, stop it. Marco, stop it.
You're making us look bad. Sure, sure.
In fact, I have already written as match modules for the first 2 years of our editorial program.
Fantastic. Oh, that's wonderful. You know, this is
Okay.
awesome. You've given me some inspiration now. I love to write and I need to write some more. This is the reason that I do this podcast, to meet people like this and to share that kind of inspiration.
If I can add one more thing.
By all means.
Another important thing is, for me, is to have a deadline.
Yes.
Okay. So if I know that I must deliver within 7 days, I will deliver within 7 days. If I know if I must deliver within 1 month, I will deliver in 1 month. That's the reason why one of the reasons why I've started a Patreon. Because on the Patreon, I'm obliged to my patrons. I've written that I will give them at least one exclusive RPG content a week, at least one a week.
Wow.
And one full adventure a month.
That's impressive.
So now I have a deadline. So now I must write.
So all of those links for the Patreon, for your existing work, and how to keep posted for the future work will be in the description box of this video. And that's inspirational. So tell me, before, we talk about, how did you get into Dungeons and Dragons? Why Dungeons and Dragons? And by the way, is my audience going to ask, is it, what's the word? Is it called Draghi Soteriani or no? How's it called? No.
The name is always Dungeons and Dragons on DnD.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. It was never translated. I don't recall if in the 80s was ever translated.
Way back then,
but
yeah.
I always call it Dungeons and Dragons even
Gotcha.
when I was a kid. Okay. Gotcha. You'll be surprised. My first RPG, the first RPG I played wasn't Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
I always liked to read. Okay. I always liked reading. When I was a kid, more or less 10, 11 years old. Okay. It was 1988, 1989. Okay. On every Saturday, every Sunday afternoon, my parents wanted to go to Milan. In Italy, is very diffuse to take a walk in the center of the city. They call it passeggiata.
Passeggiata.
Yes, just a walk.
Nice
look
clothes,
at the shops, look at the people. Okay, I hate it. It's boring.
My wife and I did this yesterday.
I don't like it. It's boring. And for me, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I always told to my parents, no, I stay at home. I prefer to stay at home to play video games. And we quarreled. We had a struggle. We struggled about it. They said I was too young to stay at home alone. Okay. So they corrupted me because I like reading. They told me, oh, I will buy you a book in the most important bookstore of the center of Milan. So I went with them, and I discovered the game books of Lone Wolf by Joe Dever. Fantastic. Okay. And every week, they bought me a game book every week.
And this was called Lone Wolf, you say?
Lone Wolf.
Lone Wolf.
Lone Wolf. Never heard about it?
I haven't.
Oh, okay. Game. Joe Dever, who wrote it, was inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, he started to play Dungeons and Dragons in the 70s, and at the beginning of the 80s, he started to write the game books of Lone Wolf. I think it's the best. The Lone Wolf series is the most famous series of game books. Okay.
Okay.
After some weeks, I bought all the volumes from the series. So the following week, I went to the bookstore, and I couldn't buy another Lone Wolf books because there wasn't. And I took another one. But when the title was something like The Forest with No Return. Okay, it was the title not of the series, but of that specific book. Okay, but when I came back at home and I opened the book, I realized it wasn't a game book. I couldn't play alone. It wasn't a module of an adventure, of an RPG. And the name of the RPG is a German RPG. The German title is Das Schwarze Auge. It was translated in English only in 2003 with the name Dark Eye. The Dark Eye. But fundamentally, it's a clone of Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? It's a clone of Dungeons and Dragons with very less. It's a very less low magic system. Okay, very low magic system. But it's a clone of Dungeons and Dragons. There's a talk between the narrator, which is the dungeon master in that game is called the narrator. Okay, there's a continuative talk between the narrator and the player. When the player want to do something that the outcome is uncertain, the narrator asks for a check. Okay, never. It's the same roots of Dungeons and Dragons. Sure. In Germany, this game was most popular than Dungeons and Dragons. The Dark Eye is not the literal translation. Literally, it would be a look in the darkness. Okay, Das Schwarze Auge, or Uno Sguardo nel buio. So I realized I couldn't play alone. So I asked my father to buy, and also I realized there were needed rules not included in that.
Right. Book. This is just a module.
So I asked my father to buy me the rule book of that game. And at the beginning, so he did me on the next Christmas. At the beginning, I played with my little sister. I forced her to be the player and I the narrator. Okay. After a couple of years, I went to high school. Okay. And then I met a couple of schoolmates that were in a DnD group where the older brother of one of them was the dungeon master. So I started each week. They lived in another town near Milan. I took the train and I go to them and play Dungeons and Dragons. After a couple of years, I created a gaming group here in my hometown. I as the DM, but we played classic DnD, so BECMI. Okay, in the first with my schoolmates. Then with my group created in my own town, we started to play the second edition of Patches Dungeons and Dragons.
Gotcha.
Okay, and we play it. We have been playing it more or less until 2010, I think.
That's great.
Yes,
Continuously for
I
almost.
played with them. Okay, I played with also other people in Milan and around. Then I have a moment of stop because first first thing, I worked for some years in another city in Rome, and there I haven't met anyone who played Dungeons and Dragons or other RPGs. Okay, because also in the 90s and the first year of the century, I tried a lot of other RPGs. Then in 2010, I remained alone with my son of 2 years old. So I was focused for 4 or 5 years in growing my son. Then in 2014, 2015, I casually found that there was a new edition of DnD, the 5th edition of DnD.
Yes.
I downloaded the SRD, okay, the free SRD.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like it. I like it much more than 3rd edition.
It's simpler.
Simpler, okay.
It's more it's friendlier to new players, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I like 5th edition a lot.
I called my old friends, my old gaming group, and we started play a game. We bought the first adventure, Horde of the Dragon Queen.
I just ran it. Yeah.
Okay. And we played it. We bought the original manuals, the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master Guide, and the Monster Manual, and the Order of the Dragon Queen, and we started playing. Then I started to. I joined the most important Italian Facebook group. Okay, and I started asking things, replying to posts, making posts, etc. And more or less a couple of years after, I began to hold small groups of Adventurers League. Okay, I met her. I like the organized play or the concept of sharing campaign idea. I like a lot because every week you can play with different players.
Yes.
You can play with different DMs.
Yes.
And it's very, very funny.
It's fresh.
Fresh and a lot of fun.
And
To play alone is good.
Yeah.
To play with some people is better.
Yes.
To play with a lot of people is even much better.
Yes. Yes. And especially if you were the Dungeon Master. So I've been in Adventure League now for going on a year. I'm similar to you. I played in high school, a little bit in college, and then there was a hiatus. And then when D&D 5e came out, friends of ours got together and we did that. And then there was a break there as well because one had a child. And so he had to commit to that, and that's fine. But now with Adventure League, we play every other week and 3 times a month. And I'm usually the Dungeon Master. What's great about that is when you create a scenario, which I do, I will run the modules, but I'll run them in my way. I have extra elements in there, that I'll throw in there because that way, if somebody's has already played that module, I have something new and unexpected for them. But what's good about that is you get to try out your material on a different audience all the time and see what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of times what I think is funny isn't funny, or I have to revise it and make it better. Or if I think adventure is tough and then they find a way around it, Now I have to do something else. And it keeps my mind working. I think that's what I like about the new players, So,
however, in Italy, Adventurers League isn't so diffused like in America, okay, like in USA.
Mm.
It's very less important.
Mm.
I think that's two reasons. First reason, Adventurers League model is based on the concept of stores. You
Yes.
go to a store,
Yes.
you will find a DM, which very often is also paid by the same store.
Oh,
You
we're not
try
paid.
the game, okay? Okay.
We're not paid.
You, I've been talking with other American some of the Chicago areas or the Indianapolis area. They are paid, but I think it's
Good for them.
It's local agreement with the stores, okay. But when you go in a store, there is a DM who runs an adventure for you, okay. And then if you like it, you buy the book, you buy the dice, you buy
Right.
the minis, you buy it. Okay. In Italy, there's no capillary diffusion of stores dedicated to RPGs.
Mm.
Stores are few and stores are small.
Mm-hmm.
So there is sometimes there isn't even enough space to hold more than one or two tables. Okay. Second one, if you read Adventurers League modules, they are straight linear. So this is the goal, this is the mission. Let's go and do the mission. Okay. That's fine. But that's the American way of thinking. Italians like a lot to speak, to tell their stories, and to tell the stories to others. The first time we had Adventurers League, I was the organizer, we had a problem with the 4 or 5 DMs. After 2 hours, they haven't finished the first chapter yet. Because I don't remember exactly which adventure it was, but just for example, if an Adventurers League adventurer says we must enter in a dragon's lair and kill the dragon, you as American will pack your weapons, your gear, and we go to the dragon's lairs and kill that dragon. We Italian, we start thinking, but why the dragon has become evil? But why we can kill? Okay, that's the huge difference. So, what I worked with the DMs, with people who wanted to DM, is to focus them on the goal and on the mission of that adventure.
So yeah, you have to have I've found that a time limit is a ticking clock is useful. So either one of the party members is poisoned and has to find like a cure for that, or that's an old trope, or like something, something like that. The town will be burned, the army is advancing. Something terrible is going to happen if you don't get it done now, Otherwise, yeah, they can sit around the tavern and talk about their past adventures all the time. Although I have to tell you, this Thursday, I'm running an adventure, which is that they meet in a tavern and there's a contest to tell about their best adventure, and whoever tells the best story wins, and then we'll reenact the adventure out on the playing table. But I think I would love to run for a party of Italians, because I think what I enjoy about Dungeons and Dragons is the storytelling, is the original contributive storytelling, and how it's different every time depending on who's at the table.
Yes. For example, the first trick I told them was take off the prologue. The party already, all party members already know each other. They have just met, they have just received their
Marching orders.
Their marching orders, and they
Mhm.
are in front of the first obstacle, the first enemy.
That's a good point.
Start
in combat. If you start in combat, that makes a big difference. Yeah, because that way you also find out what each other's abilities are. You can talk about it later. You can talk about your backstory later, but let's find out what this druid can do. Let's find out what this wizard can do. Let's look at the fighter, see what his armor class is. Like, that's a really good suggestion. I like that.
Actually, I'm not running Adventurers League Adventure modules anymore. Okay, I'm still part of organized play. I went every Friday, which is the most important center of RPG associationism in Italy. Okay, which is a municipal building in Milan, and in the better if people there don't think that number of tables each Friday is a successful metric. Okay. They don't like, and I don't like either. Okay, if I want to play to something I really want to play, I don't care if we are 5 person, as long as we still play what I want to play. Okay, so number of people present there is not a metric of success for us. But if we consider it a metric of success, in the most successful evenings, there were more than 100 people. Wow. Which, playing together, 15, 20 tables, okay, at best, which for Italian levels is high top.
That's very high. Yeah.
Usually, most successful are around 7, 8 tables. Most associations, most clubs usually make 3, 4, 5 tables, okay, together. Actually, in the last month, on Friday nights, we had 3 different gaming proposals. One based on Dungeons and Dragons, one based on Adventurers League, another one a shared campaign created by scratch from every member on Dungeons and Dragons. They created a world starting from 0, and another group played an RPG based on superheroes, which is its name is Spectaculars. Awesome product, brilliant, very brilliant. And the evening were structured in manner that every time everyone could choose which of the 3 games wanted to play.
So everybody could play at a different table if they wanted.
Yeah. For example, I didn't play in the Adventurers League. They ran the Adventurers League storyline based on Baldur's Gate, Descent into Avernus. I had already done as a Dungeon Master, so I didn't.
You know all the secrets.
I wasn't interested in it.
Sure.
I had no pleasure also in DMing it another time.
Right.
So I played a couple of evenings. I played at Supernatural. Another couple of evenings I played in the other DnD campaign, and I personally appreciated a lot this formula. Okay, And if you add up all the tables, you ended more or less around 10, 12 tables.
Gotcha. So what
Again,
character class did you play?
uh,
Let's say this. What's your favorite? If you pick a character class, which
my favorite character class is Cleric.
Is what?
Cleric.
Cleric. Yeah, clerics are amazing. Yeah.
Cleric. I'm a pious man, so Cleric is mine.
I'm a bard. I'm a bard. I like the jack of all trades aspect to the bard. So that's
but in the DnD campaign, I made a simple fighter, okay, because I wanted to play something straight, solid, and simple.
It's fun playing fighters. You know what to do. Your job is to kill, and that's it. And you just do it efficiently. Yeah, absolutely. Although sometimes I'll throw paladin in there because I like to have that, like you said, that pious element into it. And there's a little bit of a goal, a mission. I have a purpose. I'm not just slaughtering beasts for no reason. I have a backstory. I have a reason for it. And you can do that with a fighter as well, but I find that there's more structure for me mentally when I play as a paladin. So
if I must choose my favorite class, that would be definitely the cleric.
Cleric. Yeah, clerics do a lot of fun stuff, no doubt.
Bard in 5th edition is one of my favorite too. Okay.
What is it?
Bard.
Bard. Yeah.
Bard is one of my favorite.
Bard's fun. Yeah, they're fun to play act.
Okay. I think Bard has a real big problem of consistency. If you assume that the Bard use the primeval song, the primeval is like the hero songs of the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Okay, to use its magic, how can it possible that Elvis
the wizard
don't know it?
Sure. The wizard spends years poring over ancient texts in order to learn the knowledge, the arcane knowledge, and the bard just and then magic.
I think
it's magic fluty.
If I just for example, the DnD world created in that campaign, we decided not to have bards because they weren't consistent to the world we were creating.
That's what's wonderful about Dungeons and Dragons. You can modify it. You can modify that model. You can have high magic, you can have low magic, you can have rare magic, you can have magic everywhere. It could be like Eberron, where it's just everybody has feather fall because you're on these high towers and you're walking across these steel beams, basically these catwalks. And so of course everybody has magic, otherwise you'd fall to your death. That's
another dangerous class. It's warlock.
Yeah.
Why dangerous? Okay. Always not only by the mechanical side. Okay. Warlock, it's wonderful. I as a sign of the dragon, I also created a specific volume of warlocks and patrons. Okay. So I like the warlock as a class, as a mechanical class, but it is dangerous. It is a warlock is a dangerous tool for every DM. Why? My opinion, Pat. Always in my opinion.
Yeah, tell me.
Okay. The warlock is too tentative for the DM. Why? The DM will always use the patron of the warlock as an engine of the story.
I see.
And by doing so, the warlock character will become the protagonist of the story of the table. And the other characters will be only its companions.
Yep.
This is the reason why the warlock is dangerous.
It's unbalanced, sure. It makes for an unbalanced story. Yeah. Or
the risk to unbalance the story, good, Pat. The risk to unbalance the story is very high. I give you an example.
Well, if you're writing a novel, that's fantastic. But if you're playing with 5 other people, everybody wants to be part of the story, and you want to make that as equal as possible. If you can, it's never going to be 100% equal, but you want everybody at the table to have a turn and to be their hero of their part of the story. You know.
I'll give you an example. On August, I went to another city in the center of Italy, Fabriano. It's a small town, but they held a con much visited by many people from every part of Italy. Okay, I have made some friends there, so each year I go there. I take 4 or 5 days and go there. The con lasts 4 days. Okay, from Thursday to Sunday. From the last Thursday to the last Sunday of August. I had a game as a player, okay, in a game system created by an Italian creator, RPG designer. I never met him personally, but I have met him on social. I had some brief chats with him. And the first time I was there and I played at this table. Okay, the system is very different from Dungeons and Dragons, much more like a PBTA. Okay, powered by the apocalypse. And was a good system, and we had an adventure. And that adventure, the character I was playing was a princess that left his ancestral home to become a sort of paladin. And he was coming back home to the castle, to the manor of his family, of her family, with some of her friends. And all the adventures was centered about my heritage, my heirloom. So the adventure, for example, there were some areas of the castle that only I could access there.
Mm-hmm.
There was some dialogue that, for example, the queen of the castle, my mother, only spoke to me. Okay, all the servants was keen to spoke with me, not with the others. So what I tell to that designer, I said, okay, the adventure, the story is perfect. The story was perfect. The story was perfect. If it was a book or a movie.
Yep.
To play it was unbalanced. Because I was the hero of the story. My character was the hero of the story. The other was only compromise, was only my servants. Okay.
I think maybe story form is important. I think writers get stuck sometimes in a certain story form. They understand it and it makes sense to them because they have seen so many movies, read so many books. But what we're looking for is really a quest. It's the quest. It's the group that it's Star Wars. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the Lord of the Rings. It's a group effort. And even in the Lord of the Rings, it's not really Frodo's story. It's the story of the ring and how it progresses. It's Sam's story. It's, Pippin and Merry have a part in the story. Aragorn, of course, becomes king. Is it Aragorn's story? No, it's everyone's story. And it's hard to write that way.
So a little advice I can give to any DM, it's try not to be a storyteller. Try not to be a writer. try to be what the DM is really like. The DM is a player.
A
In my
player
opinion.
and an arbiter of the rules. So that's all. Like let the players tell the story, and then you can facilitate that through interesting interpretations of the rules.
Okay. And Dungeons and Dragons, one of the which is the less read book of each edition of Dungeons and Dragons?
The Dungeon Master's Guide. Yeah, nobody reads that. Yeah.
And the Dungeon Master Guide of 5th edition clearly says what is the role of the Dungeon Master. The Player's Handbook says that one of the players has another role. Page 5 of the player. So the Dungeon Master is a player.
The player.
It is told, it is written in the Player's Handbook.
That's a really good point.
The Dungeon Master's Guide on page. So I'm looking for the Dungeon Master Guide.
I have mine over here as well.
The Dungeon Master Guide, Master Guide says on page 4, which is the role of the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master is a creator of worlds. The first part, so the Dungeon Master must set up the context, the world, exactly like focusing in an adventure. On page 5 of the Player's Handbook, it is written, the Dungeon Master describes the context, what the character sees, what the character smells, what the character hears, what the ambient, what the ambient looks like. It's the same thing from the big to the small scale. So this is the role of the Dungeon Master. But in my opinion, it is a player exactly like all the other players.
I like that idea.
This is, and I don't know in Italy, but I don't know in the USA, sorry. But in Italy, this concept is not quite understood. Many people tell it, but truly they don't believe it. For me, DMing or GMing is not a service. When I was young, I believed it was a service. It was the role of the Dungeon Master or the Game Master to be a storyteller, to be a bard, to be an entertainer. Now I don't want to entertain anything. I just want to play with others. and this concept, I really don't know if in USA this concept is diffused or, but if I say like, so can I make some names on your, okay. So for me, the most important example of the DM as a service, as an entertainer, is Matt Colville.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
In that role, he is perfect. Okay, he is perfect for that role. Simply, it's not the role of mine. I don't want to be in that role.
No, he's an entertainer. Yeah.
I give you another example. On June 2023, we had a con. Usually in Milan, we had the free RPG day. Okay, Okay. We didn't hold the free RPG day this year. But we had another kind of con that was very different. Which was in the center was the player. So we started with a survey asking to everyone, a survey on social media, asking everyone in Italy which games would like to play.
Oh, okay.
Okay. They choose, there was some, Dungeons and Dragons was the first or the second. No, the first was 7th.
Oh,
The
yes, I've
second,
heard
Legend of
great
the
things
Five
about that.
Rings. The second, Legend of the Five Rings, and the third, Dungeons and Dragons, and then a lot of others.
Yeah.
This was the first survey. Then we had a call, not for masters, like usually when you make a con, you make a call for masters. That
Sure.
No, we call them responsible of table. For example, I was a responsible of table. I don't like 7th, and I don't know very well Legend of Five Rings. So I wasn't able to be responsible of a table for that two games. So I went to Dungeons and Dragons. What was the role of the responsible? The responsible has in charge to prepare everything to play a game, a session of that game. So, for example, I created 4 character sheets, okay? One fighter, one mage, one wizard, sorry, one cleric, and one rogue, okay? 3rd level. I brought a copy of Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Handbook, Monster Handbook, Monster Manual. I brought dice, pencils, rubbers. I brought 10 possible maps of dungeons. And then I asked the player, the other player, who wants to be the dungeon master?
Oh, nice.
Everyone can be. Let's try. I'm here. I will guide you in the first 20, 30 minutes to create a dungeon, a simple dungeon based on one of the maps you like more. Okay. I will help you to create some traps,
Populate the
some
map.
monsters. Okay. Yeah. Using the tables in the Dungeon Master Guide. Okay. And then you run the game and then be one of the players. This was too hard for many people. At my table, everyone refused. So I was forced to be the Dungeon Master. Otherwise, we couldn't play. But in other tables, it is success. My son, 14 years old, brought an RPG called Nova, and he didn't GM. He was one of the players and helped the Dungeon Master, who was in charge, and helped telling him some hints about the rules, helping in some scenes. But in another table, the responsible, which brought the necessary to run a session of vampires. Okay. It was a little provocatory, but we did it on purpose. Left all the things there, asked to the other players, do you know vampires? One said, I know vampires. I've been playing it for a lot of years. I think I am a good GM. Good. Then GM This is everything you need to run a GM vampire session, and then stand up and go away.
They walked away.
And went away and walked away.
That's fantastic.
So
I have to tell you, that's wonderful. I taught a summer camp this past year, 2023, for the first time, and taught kids that were 9, 10, and 11 years old how to play Dungeons and Dragons. I gave them an example the first day. We had 5 days. The first day, I ran them through a scenario. I didn't even give them character sheets. I just said, you're in a supermarket. The manager says, they're back. What's back? You hear a buzzing noise. There was a giant insect and they had to do something about the giant insect. And they could have done it any way they wanted to. Of course, they were boys. They killed it. But, you know, they could have opened a window and let it out, but they killed. That's what they did. Anyway, yes. The second day I did another scenario, and then the third, fourth, and fifth days, they ran their own. I had to make a dungeon on the second day. I had them draw a dungeon on the second day. And on the third, fourth, and fifth days, they all ran each other's dungeons. They all ran their own dungeon for each other. And I just stood and watched because I wanted them to learn how to play the game once they left the camp. Yeah, once I wasn't there. So they could play with their brothers, sisters, friends. That's what I thought my job was at that camp. And I did it again in the fall at 2 different after school programs and got paid both times. And which is wonderful. And I think that older players, adults, could use that we could do that like you just did at that con. That's a wonderful idea. And I think it's important because I think it's, for myself, I learn by doing, right?
Yeah.
So when you come up against an obstacle, you have a question. Okay, we have a question. How do we do this? Okay, great.
Okay, let's read the books. Let's find out
together.
Let's find out. Because one of the most common, back in the 90s, when I was young, usually only the Dungeon Master had the rule books. Of course, nobody reads nothing. Okay.
Right. You don't read the whole book.
Okay.
Before you play, right?
So, all of us played not Dungeons and Dragons or the other RPGs, but the version that DM had in mind.
Exactly.
Recently, this is what I'm doing is my way to face my middle-age crisis. Okay, I'm going back to play basic expert companion immortal and master immortal edition of DnD. So I read probably for the first time the full rules encyclopedia of the 1990s. There were a lot of rules that my DM back in high school, as I told, never used. But those rules were the better part of the game, in my opinion. So I tried in the last con held we have in Milan on December. I ran a dungeon adventure exactly by the book, by the rules encyclopedia. One of the funnest role-playing game session I ever had in my life. So usually in the last years, one of the things I usually want is to play a game and try to play by the rules. Not why? Because playing by the rules means playing the game as the game designer had in mind.
Well, not only the game designer, but the play testers too, because
Yes.
when games are made, these guys don't just write stuff and throw it out there. A lot of times these things are, they test on their families, they test on their friends, they test with actual like anonymous groups of volunteers who don't know anything about the game. And they sit down and then they improve them and they realize why they needed to add certain rules and take other rules out. So they made all the mistakes that we as beginners coming to this would make on our own. And we don't have to make those mistakes because they've already amended those rules in order to prevent us from having to make those mistakes. So why not avail ourselves of that wisdom, right?
And especially the most important pages and the first ones in which there is described which on which is based the game. Okay, this game is based upon this and that. And so that information give you the right set of mind to play that game. And usually the introduction is one of the part of the rule book that is less read.
Maybe instead of introduction, if I ever write one of those books, I'll just say the essential
They are
part.
Yeah, very important. Are very important.
The most important paragraph.
Yes, because the game design. Just for an example, I look. So this is Blades in the Dark.
Sure.
Blades in the Dark. Mm-hmm. It is the Italian edition. I usually play in English edition. Okay. This is in Italian. I don't know why. So I give you a translation, directly a translation from Italian.
Sure.
Blades in the Dark. It's a game to live the stories of a group of thieves that is building a criminal firm in the streets of an industrial fantasy city. These three lines.
We know what's going on.
Settled the mood of the game.
Yes. We know that we're not in the rural area, we're in an industrial area, right? We know that we're criminals.
We know we are thieves. We know we are criminals.
And we know that we're building an organization.
Yes.
So it's yes. So yeah, that gives a lot of information in 3 lines.
And so when what is a role playing? Role playing, in my opinion, all what I've said is my opinion. Role playing isn't acting, isn't performing. Role playing is playing well the role at your game. So if we are playing criminals, I'll act like a criminal. But I'll play like a criminal.
Yeah.
I will not act like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, okay? But I will be a criminal and nothing else. A criminal that wants to build a criminal organization, not just a criminal, which is very different.
Sure.
Okay. I will not go rob alone, or I will play with my comrades to build that criminal organization. I can't play, I can't act alone. I must play with them.
Yes, and I think that's one of the things that Adventure League does right, is that all of the rewards in a D&D Adventure League adventure are shared at the end. They're not shared. Everybody gets the same thing at the end, right? And what that does is that promotes, that eliminates the rivalry that can happen in groups where you try to backstab or somebody tries to pickpocket another player.
Yes.
You don't have any of that. So this teaches the basic idea of the group. You know, the group goal is paramount. Now you can have all those fun little adventures in your homebrew. They're a blast. But I think it's important for new players to realize that, you know, this is a goal-oriented objective, and each of you has a part to play in it, and an important part to play in it. And I think that's emphasized by that. Yeah.
Usually I say at the beginning to newbie players, it's a cooperative game.
Cooperative. That's right. It's cooperative. For me, it's a cooperative storytelling game, and you get to decide which way this story goes.
Yes.
You know, within certain parameters. I love the sandbox, but there's a limit to the sandbox. I can only prepare so much, you know. But as my depth as a DM and my experience becomes better, then I have a bigger and bigger sandbox, because I can say, well, I can pull this in from this adventure that I ran 3 weeks ago, and, you know, and throw that at them and see how they handle that. So it's, yeah.
Yes.
Well, Marco, I've had a wonderful time with you. We went far further than I thought we were going to, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. Absolutely wonderful.
Whenever you want, Pat. It's
Fantastic.
Very, very nice to speak with you.
Oh, thank you. And my Italian, I'm learning Italian, so maybe I can practice that with you a little bit. I can say things like, noi siamo gli uomini. I can say things like that now. But, you know, io bevo l'acqua. But I'll get better, and maybe I'll get some dungeon-like terms in there as well.
I think you have a good pronunciation. Surely better than mine in English. Okay.
I don't know about that. But your English is impeccable. And your knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons is obviously extensive, and you're a prolific writer, and we want to reward that by putting all of the links that people can obtain your stuff with. And I, for one, am definitely going to take a look at your Patreon page. I'm amazed that you've set such a high bar for yourself, giving people original content once a week and additional content once a month. That's far more ambitious than I would be.
For the base level.
Yeah.
For the base level, this is what I promise for my patrons at the base level.
Wow, that's really a value.
There are 4 levels. Go and see. There are 4 levels.
Oh yeah.
This is the base level, the entry level.
Fantastic. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to say before we go?
I want to thank you, and I hope to meet you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank everybody for watching, and buona notte and happy adventures out there. Okay.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good